Good morning, everybody, and good morning to whoever is joining us today. My name is Njoko. I am the co-founder of NS Business School. So today we are discussing the impact and the role of millennials in the workspaces as well as in businesses. We all know that millennials are gradually, in fact, I think they're already making a larger percentage of the workforce. Those are global statistics, and I would like to believe it's the same for the South African space as well. So we all know that, you know, when people talk millennials, they're thinking, okay, what do we do with these guys? They are a special breed. So I think it's very important that we as leaders in businesses, as leaders in corporates, we really need to start having deeper and constructive conversations in how we engage with this new generation and how we can able to leverage on their talents and skills outside of the negatives that we always talk about when we're talking millennials, how problematic they are. But we want to, you know, dive into what are those issues. But they don't only come with issues. If you do look at the research that has been done, they don't only come with challenges. They actually are a generation that has a lot to offer. But then there's a gap in how leaders and organizations are able to leverage on these. So there's that gap that we need to then talk about. You know, I was reading also that, you know, millennials are actually one of the generations that are starting businesses earlier than the previous generations. I think the average age is around 25, 27 compared to the previous generations where they were starting businesses at about 35 or 37 going up. So these are the guys that are wanting to take risk. They've got talents. They want to, you know, push the boundaries. They want to see how the world works. They want to innovate, etc., etc. And that's why I'm saying I really love this space, because I think there's a lot of talent that businesses can tap into. It's just now the how do we meet each other, you know, halfway. So I'm not alone today. I am with my partners, Shongwe, and we are joined by Reabetswe Molapo, who will give us a bit more introduction on her side. She is a strategist, she's a consultant, and a consultant mainly in this millennial space. And obviously she does business strategy, and she's a woman of many talents. She speaks, she writes, there's a book. I saw the other day there's a book that I didn't know about. It's important that I hope you brought it to show us what the book is, Reabetswe. And we just also discovered that she's actually an artist. She paints. That painting there at the back, she actually did it. I was so chuffed that she actually did that. So did she actually do the painting, or was she like, you know, was it a PR stunt from her side?
PR, honey.
So I think today's conversation is going to be magic. So Swangile, do a brief intro on your side, and then we're gonna take it over to Reabetswe.
My name is Swangile Shongwe. Co-host for this session and co-founder of NS Business School. I'm so excited to be part of this one. You know, on Facebook, as I was writing and posting sharing to say it's gonna be a lead session. So, you know, some of my kids, you know, around the world were saying, Mom, now you are speaking the language, you are with the boys for so long, now you're starting to speak their language. And I'm like, I need to be relevant, you know, because actually it is such a session that's going to be lit. So I'm really excited and looking forward to the session.
Yeah, I saw that. They were like, Aibo, so you're now speaking lit, you know? I saw that. I know, interesting enough, my kids were telling me, I think it was last Friday, I can't use the word swag. Apparently, I'm messing it up when it comes from a person of my age. Mom, don't use the word swag. And I'm like, okay, cool. No, don't use cool. I'm like, okay, cool, yo. No, don't use cool. Oh, that sounds like what Fresh Prince of Bel-Air times 1892. I'm like, guys, do you even know when 1892 is?
Yeah, you know.
So I love having these conversations with these young guys. So, Ria, please do a bit of introduction and give us your background, who you are, what you do. A woman of many talents, as young as you are. A very impressive resume you have.
Good morning, ladies, and I'm assuming there's gentlemen as well somewhere out there. Thank you so much, Pumzile and Swangile, for welcoming me. This is really a warm welcome. I think, firstly, acknowledging the fact that you as women running a business school in South Africa in this generation is massive props. So I'd really like to give you a hand of applause. I have no idea how difficult it could be. I have my own assumptions of how difficult it could be, breaking barriers, but you literally are in a space of development, and that's my favorite space. When it comes to human development, count me in. And so basically, I guess if one was to summarize in a nutshell what's my passion, that is developing people, developing humans to their best capacity or their best abilities. So whether it is through channels of speaking, whether it is through channels of writing, whether it is through a channel of, so I believe that whatever platforms that I'm given are just channels to help develop the human mind, the human soul, the human spirit, and just to getting, us as humans to a point of understanding our individual purposes, but also our collective purposes. So let's say if we were to come in speaking about what's Reabetswe's purpose, I'm here to build people. I'm a construction person, I'm a mindset architect. I'm here to build, man, and help you design your life in the best way possible, and obviously help you with tools. But I think in general, I'm just an ordinary, some people will be like, I'm not ordinary, but this is how I feel. I'm just an ordinary black girl. I was brought up by a single parent mother. However, I believe that I'm a child of Abantu, been brought up, let's say, by your aunts, uncles. Wonke umuntu has a hand in bringing up Reabetswe. I'm very spiritually what. I'm a Christian by faith. So I root a lot of what I do, who I am on that basis. Wow, guys. I still am trying to figure out if I should, call myself an artist.
And so you should. You should.
I assume so. So I'll just add in there as a splash. But yeah, I'm just an all-rounded lover of people, lover of things as well. Just a human having a human experience.
Yeah. We were talking before we started, there's a phenomena or whatever that is called multi-hyphenated. And it's usually applied really in the artistic space where people will say, I'm an actor, I'm a painter, but it actually, is more specifically now, with the advent of COVID, people are now doing a whole lot of things. And they have actually discovered what they have in them. So why I'm saying that is that when you are saying you are developing people, it is important to embrace all of you
100%.
in order for you to add that value in the development of other people. It's critical for us to start understanding that. While we were always taught, stick to one lane, you are an accountant, you are left-brained or you are right-brained, stick to this. But as a human being, you are actually not one. You are layered. You've got multi-talents. You've got a whole lot of you. So the more you bring yourself, all of you, into the fore and embrace all of you, I think it's a secret sauce when you are someone in the development of people. Bring all of you.
And it creates that, a lot of the times within, the workplace, let's call it that, or the marketplace, people are talking about a work-life balance. And what does that look like? It looks like you embracing the holistic you. So if you're able to then tap into, say, for example, you are the analytically mind or left brain or whatever, you are always with numbers, you're always analyzing, everything is scientific, everything is rigid. You need to balance it out somewhere, somehow. There needs to be a channel that you use, and you find it already inside of you, but you don't tap into it. Then you find this thing called burnout, and that's why, because you're really driving in one lane the whole time, but you're not really balancing it out. And so God, smart as he is, built us all like that. You find some people, so my mother's a scientist, she's a medical technologist. So she feels that So these things, creativity, it's not me, but she hasn't tapped into it. She hasn't discovered it. And so once you do, and there's that piece that comes with, it's sort of like when you tap into creative things, or they bring in life to you. So we need to figure out that groove of, yes, you may be boxed or branding yourself as analytical or as a scientist, but I think maybe because I believe that we are created in the image of the creator, there's no way we can't be creative. There's no way.
Yeah, we are creating all the time. When you wake up, you being you are creating something all the time. And that's the thing. When we are talking work-life balance, people think work rest.
Yes.
It's not that. Work-life balance is embracing all of you, not just one of you. So if you are an accounting person, you need to find other areas of you, because in tapping into those other areas of you, they energize the accountant in you. So that's how it works. That is the balance that actually intrinsically we need to be focusing on. Yes, there's nothing wrong with lying in, doing your nails, doing your hair. Yes, those things are needed. But there's an intrinsic work-life balance that we struggle with. And that's why sometimes you can sleep and you wake up still like, but I'm still tired. Because you go on a spa, you do the hair, you go out with the girls, but there's this deep sense of, but I'm still, I'm not rejuvenated, I'm not energized. It's because you are not embracing all of you.
But and remember, with that re-energizing yourself, resetting yourself, it's also got to do with understanding your behavioral, like who are you, right? And so also your persona. That whole element of being an introvert and extrovert isn't about how therefore we extrovert, right? It's not about that. So I'm an introvert actually. And that's how I reset my button. So while I'm painting, I'm in my own zone, own space. When I'm writing, I'm in my own zone, own space. That's how I re-energize the button, my buttons, and I'm able to be present. But if I'm just like this, wire, I'm gonna burn out. So it's figuring that, the kink. Yes,
it all starts with you. It all ends with you. In anything. So you need to go deeper into yourself. So I can do the painting. Oh, I can bake. Oh, I like baking. And so you need to go deeper into yourself, and that's how you start discovering that work-life balance, the intrinsic element of it. So you wanted to say something?
No, I think you two are touching on the most important thing that, you're talking about being multi-layered. So I just have this one question that maybe it's a thought that is that why, people are so dissatisfied with what they are doing, with what we are doing. You find, I love what I do, but you feel like there's something that is missing, sort of. I also love that, but I'm not good at it. Is it why we're seeing a lot of people, job hopping all of the time, but doing the same thing, but they're not happy? Something is not working. Could that be maybe the issue? And while we are at it, talking about the work-life balance, Pumzile, I think you missed it, Tina. Those that were born before the millennials, we also have the family aspect. So we're told, balance the family, balance your work, go to work, look after the family, then everything should be okay. Then you balance. But the one that has come up is it why maybe people are so not satisfied? I think it's coming out more often now these days.
Yeah.
I agree a lot with Mpongile. Yeah, I agree a lot. So I wanted to tap into what you've just mentioned about the whole job hopping element, which is what millennials are known for. This is the people that, when it comes to them and retaining them in the workspace, it's just another issue, right? But it's literally because they are the generation that is self-aware, right? So they're aware so much of themselves, and that's one of their aims and one of their key drivers is, being in a space or workplace where all of them is included. but the workplace isn't including their entirety. So you hire me as a chartered accountant. However, I'm also innovative, or I also come up with great solutions. So I can be a strategist. I can double up as a strategist. But you boxed me in that department. And so I feel very despondent and a little bit displaced because not all of me is accepted in that space, right? Even maybe when it comes to dress code, perhaps, you know, I feel like, ooh, this place is very toxic. If you hear millennials, they'll tell you, ooh, work is so toxic, you know, this environment.
It's a buzzword. Mama had it toxic. I'm like, oh God.
Toxicity to the degree. So like, I know, you know, of someone very close to me. She's a young Black female. She's quarter to Boma 40, a professional, has her MBA and everything. Recently had to resign because of toxic work environment. And Maga resigned, it wasn't because there is like there's another job waiting. And this is the kind of people we're talking about. They will leave without having option B. To show you and to prove to you, the employer, that you have not created a space that is conducive for me to live, that is conducive for me to apply my knowledge. Maybe even my degree doesn't even feel worthwhile. And so this is why it becomes an important conversation and an important topic with HR, with management, with leadership, to say, how are you making the workspace conducive for this demographic? Because this is the largest population, as Pumzile mentioned. They are slowly becoming the bigger workforce, but also they are becoming the bigger consumer base. So in your business, who is your target? Yes, it's corporate, but who are the majority of the stakeholders that, you know, yes, you're going to talk about your clients, whatever, but they are the biggest. So are you making them happy? And also learning to capitalize on that talent. They will literally be able to direct you on how to market your product because they spend their time and their lives dually. So, you know, we've got these lives where we've got our normal lives, and then there's the metaverse, you know, there's the dual world where we're also living on social media. How are you, from your business perspective, able to capitalize on that life as well? So having them within your workspace will actually enable you to come up with relevant ideas so that you can be relevant in this current demographic. So yes.
So Ria, because we've already dived into the actual topic. Let's just define Shambu's explainer, because we are always talking millennials. We are always taking 2000. You know, we've got Gen X, we've got Gen Y, which is, you know, Bazoti is part of the millennials. There is a classification. So give us the rundown, Tina, on the classifications of these generations and how they find themselves colliding in the workspace. Who know baby boomers between this age and that age, Gunama, Gen Z, Gen Y, etc., etc. Give us a little bit, because sometimes we talk about these topics and because I saw in your post this morning, you're like, I didn't even know computer was an acronym. I didn't know that.
And then I was corrected by the dean of Henley.
Right? Because when, you know what I'm saying, we talk about an acronym as if it's actually a word, or we talk about a term or a principle because it's such a buzz. We think we now know what this thing is about. So let's get to, you know, what is a millennial? What is a baby boomer? What is a Gen X? What are these people?
Okay, so I think to make it easier, I'll just call them out chronologically and how they came, you know, their generation. So Rutomaka, the baby boomers. So this is like circa 1946 to 1964. So definitely my mother falls into this generation because she's a 1962. So this is group based on the American whatever spectrum.
Very true. Yeah. Because they usually try to align it to the world wars, etc., etc. So it's usually an American. And I wanted to get to a point where we eventually, you know, people like you will then take all these studies and bring it down to us as an African people, because there are nuances there that I couldn't relate to as I was reading up on these different,
Exactly, because that's why I'm, you know, being specific on it's American, because this is also a challenge for me personally, because my age group, I'm a millennial, but some of the things that are spoken about or that we are able to Google and research on now, or find information on, I don't relate to, you know?
Yeah.
So because of my demographic and also where I am, geographically. So, but anyway, to begin, the baby boomers will be 1945 to 1955. That's the group. And then you have your Gen X, which is circa 1965 until 1985. All right. And then you have your millennials, which are 1985 until 2000. And then you have the one, hey, I was watching a video last night of a guy saying these are the problems.
Yeah.
So these are the Gen Z 2000s up until now. I'm a 2K, the troublemakers, the born frees. They don't have nothing to fight for anymore. And that's why their energy is misdirected apparently. So anyway, going back to baby boomers, like we said, 1946 until 1964, these are very, these structured. So as I said, my mother, when I look at my mother, I think of somebody who's very, traditional. She believes in structure. She believes in routine. Things are done in a certain way. When I look at maybe how a lot of their generation has been working, everything is about hierarchy. It's about, working through a particular, you speak to this, you speak to that person, you speak to that person, you talk to, you don't just talk to nobody anyhow. You don't just send an email to the CEO. You have to talk to the line manager first. And then you talk to so and so, then they will raise it up. But you don't just go to the boss's office and just go and complain. Everything is about structure. Everything is about respect, I guess. And also respect for them is defined differently from how respect is defined to us. They were the ones that were working while Abopos John were there, and they still regard them as that. So there's also that element, let's say, bringing into South African context of racial fear. There's an element of fear that I see with, Black older professionals versus, in the workplace and how they relate to people of other races. There's an element of fear. Then that's just my opinion. It might not be true. And then you have the Gen X. These are the guys that they were the first people to open up multiracial schools, So this for me would be my older cousins who are currently in their late 30s, early 40s, or actually early 40s. And they for South Africa, they're the ones who kind of broke routine. They everything was new with them. Some of them moved to new, urban to the suburbs. That's when their parents started buying houses around about that time. So there's that urban influence, the influence of music at that time, the influence of culture, the hip hop culture also influenced them a lot in how they think. So not only with rhythm, but with what hip hop was at that time. So, music, what hip hop meant for them was an element of freedom of expression. So they believe in freedom of expression, but it was just the beginning. They were still testing how it works. So they're all about, freedom of expression. However, funny enough, when it comes to the workplace, they're actually seen as the more productive in the workplace, according to
Of course we are.
They got bills to pay. They got mortgages. So those things are very,
true story.
My job, yeah. So, and then you get the millennials, who are the hashtag generation, who came through with technology, social media. These are the tech savvy ones. They don't read the manuals. They just figure out how it works. Give them a phone, give them, start new, introducing new software in the workplace. They're the ones who kind of get it first. My mom will complain at work, for example, when they bring in a new software or something new and they have to, introduce it. They go through training. Even after that week of training, she's still trying to figure out how it's working. While the millennials just danger, So to them also, productivity is, can I do this faster so I can, spend more time doing something else? That's the mindset behind them. That's how millennials work. The point of productivity is so that let me do this fast, get the results quickly, get whatever that needs to be done quicker. I don't need to be at work 9 to 5.
And that's a big one. That's a big challenge for a lot of employers. A lot of employers cannot get.
I'm done with my work by 12 o'clock. Why do I still need to be there? I've done what you needed me to do. Why do I still need to be there? I need to have my work-life balance. I need to go out on a vacation with my friends. I need to kind of be able to be effective in your workplace. I need to have that, I need to go on a spa date because who tends, um,
And I was reading an
out.
article yesterday actually talking to exactly that, employers are now forcing, the staff or their employees to come back to work. And this person is a CEO, I think, of Jack Ham, is saying, but I don't understand well. And people have not been consulted. And people have gone back to say, but for 2 years, we've been working, and then we've been working productively. So why do we have to go back to work? Because now we have actually rearranged our lives according to that, but we've produced. And now we have to go back to work for the what? For the why do we have to go back to
That is
work?
for the rent.
For the rent what? You see, those CEOs are the baby boomers. That's why they just cannot understand. They cannot understand that if I don't see you, you are not at the workplace, something is not right. It's a big thing. It's a big thing. The going back to work type of a situation. Yes. Okay. You can continue.
And I mean, like Bongile said, now I've gotten to a routine of knowing how to wake up and get my work done from home. Now, jiggy, I need to go back to traffic. Joburg traffic. Hello, petrol is increasing. There's a whole lot of other elements, but they're just concerned about, hey, we lease this building. You need to come to the office. That's that.
It's the rent.
It's the rent.
And I like how the accent as well.
It's
a baby boomer's accent.
Yeah.
Well, we have as a corporation and management.
But you've got them pinned down, girl. You know them.
Yeah.
And then so the slash generation and what we were speaking about, they're open to collaboration. They're open. They're open to sharing ideas. These millennials that we're talking about, and they're open to using different parts of them. So these are the ones that actually are very solution, like they're constantly caring about bringing in a solution within the workspace. So even if it's not within their area of expertise, but because they'll use logic or they'll use whatever, they'll use their own, innate ability. They want to bring in solutions. I mean, this is why we have things like trees must fall, roads must fall. These are the generation that enabled that. They care so much about societal issues as well. And that's actually one of the KPIs. But does corporate understand that, right? So they care about the impact of politics. They care about policies. They care about social stance. They care about the green environment. They care about how the company operates, where it's saving energy, all these elements they care about. And if one doesn't then bring that into play, they feel that they're not being catered for. And that's then why, going back to Sibongile's point, they will leave. Even without caring for what's happening with the bank balance, they're free-spirited, they'll find a way. Mom is there, mom will take care of them. Dad is there. And that's how, they don't mind going back to their parents' couches and rerouting. They're one of those that don't really mind starting afresh. And also then going back to Pumzile, what you mentioned earlier on about them being risk takers, that's within their blood. Funny enough, they don't mind. And that's why they'll just be like, you know what, I'll resign. This is not working for me. Maybe I'll go teach English in China. Why not? So even the same generation, some of them might delay with building families. And also, here's another pointer that is actually an issue that's on the rise is when it comes to millennials, the issue of financial stability. This generation finds it very hard to get into the property space because of, if we link it back to the baby boomers and the Gen Xers who are more concerned about, I got bills to pay. That's how they'll stay in the job, right? So this generation, I can come in and leave, I can go. So my bank account is doing this. What is the bank about that when it comes to, mortgage, when it comes to giving me a home loan or whatever the case is. So their finances is also a point to have a discussion on, because it's linked to the risk. They are very risk averse, and they to the bank are a risk. So when they do start their businesses, the issue of access to funding also becomes an actual issue. So yeah, and then you've got your Matuks. These guys are about content creation. Yonkinto has to be, if it's not on the socials, it didn't happen. They'll go to school with the camera, everything is documented. Walking into the classroom, when they pick on the teacher, it's documented. They'll create a reel about
Everything.
that. I hope you know what a reel is.
Oh, I know what a reel is. I do. I
No,
do.
really?
And I'm quite proud of myself.
So they're about reels, they're about TikTok and content, video content. They love their music. Everything is linked to music as well, mentally for them. They're very creative, out of the box thinkers. And funny enough, people might not see them as savvy or business savvy, but they use these systems to create, financial gain. So your TikTok accounts, they influencers, they're all about building followers, bringing in content, going to new places. They love the traveling, they love the moving around, because then that's how they retain their followers. So if you then have like an inner an analysis, I guess, of them, they want to kind of learn more about each other's lives, or zone into each other's lives, which is where then they derive content. The question would be whether the content is authentic or not, or curated. That's where the juggle comes in, the authenticity of it. But these are the people that influence culture as we know it. So the current culture, what's the current, what are these young kids watching? They influence one another on shows. They influence one another on habits that they pick up on the shows. And this is also, a lot of corporates are starting to see that. That's why a lot of investment is going into advertising on certain platforms, on certain shows, because they know. And so this is why corporate needs to understand and invest in things like behavioral science, understanding the behaviors, the values, the systems of the different generations, their different customer personas, and also employee personas as well. And this is why I guess we're having this kind of conversation, is breaking it down, segmenting it, who's more keen on what. And me as a business, when it comes to supplying the service or the product that I'm supplying, how do I, get that client, or how do I get that person? This is why we have influencers. These businesses buy into these people's lives so that they could rent them and influence whatever audience that they're looking at. So it's a whole economy of its own, I guess, or ecosystem of its own.
Okay. So in your type of work, in your working with organizations, in this space, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, that organizations, organizations might say, these guys, we have a problem with these guys, they are just ungovernable. This is what I always hear. They are ungovernable, they are shallow, they are non-committed, to your point, they will just leave, no notice, no nothing. They just don't take things seriously as a corporate world. As the corporate world is built, they are just pushing against all of those boundaries. However, they are making my 55% of my workforce. Help me in your work that you have done, or are looking into different organizations. Are organizations really ready to because this, I would assume, it changes the whole culture in the organization.
Yeah.
It changes an entire leadership style, how we do things. It changes policies. I know there are certain companies that have dress code policy, which you can't wear. There was a company I used to work for when I started in my early days. You can't wear a shoe where your toe is peeping out. They had things like that in
Africa, where it's hot.
Policy. Yeah. And those types of policies apparently still exist in most companies. So there's a whole shift in how we actually do business, and it's not easy. if you really have to have a strong drive at the top. Are organizations ready and willing? Do they have the appetite to do what needs to be done? Or is it just, I know I have a problem, but, and then we move on again. And then we just call Ria in to come and give a talk, an hour talk, we pay them, or a little workshop nyana, we pay her, and then she's gone. We score her in some sort of, we had some sort of diversity training of sorts, and then we move along. How are you finding corporates? I will go to entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are also employers. They have their own complexities there. In the corporate space, how are you finding these conversations?
It's a really difficult one to navigate because firstly, to your point of the employer sees the problem, but it's like, I think I can live like, man, we'll just enforce, you know, we are still the ones who are making the decisions, we're the decision makers. And then you've got a group of people that are saying, okay, you continue with your decision making, this is why they're leaving. Then you'll be left with a whole of like you won't have the millennials in your workplace looking at our baby boomers, our Gen X or whatever, but because you're lacking that, question whether your business will still be relevant.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're saying is that your business, say for example, I know maybe we might not be able to bring in brands, but say you're a beverage company and whatever beverage you are, who is your biggest consumer base? If you would, it's actually affordable labor that you're getting, even though you will be paying high rates for specialized analysts who's my age to come through and help you with strategies, whether it is within the marketing, whether it is within the brand, the feel, whatever, whether it is how to then bring in the brand to the market. You actually getting, in as much as you'll be paying a high price, but you're getting value for your money because I know the demographic, I am the demographic, as opposed to having my mother who will be in that space as your what leader, making decisions for a generation she doesn't understand. Your advertising will be misaligned. So you're actually going to be losing more money by not changing as a corporate, as an entity, but they're failing to see that. I'll just be honest with you. They're not seeing the importance or the ripple effect of not investing in a holistic view. You shouldn't just be bringing in Reabetswe to no, come in and tickle them a little bit. No, we want to really enable the environment. If your millennials, and also, do you analyze? Do you ask them, when in their exit interviews, do you ask them why they're leaving, or do you just you sign the papers, you leave, and that's that? Ask them, do your research and inquire why they're leaving, and have that honest conversation as to then, okay, if they're leaving because they're calling it a toxic environment, what does a toxic environment look like to them versus me? I'm used to things being done like this. I've been here for 20 years, and that's the thing. You've been there for 20 years. It's not the same as 20 years ago. You've been doing the same thing for the past 20 years. Things are changing, the way things are done, even communications, like we said, with baby boomers, it's about hierarchy. Today, I literally am, I feel as a millennial, I have the right and the audacity to email the CEO directly because it's within my rights. Because remember, now you're talking to a generation that knows their rights. They know that if you're telling me that I can't come to work with a peep toe, what are you saying? You're infringing my rights to freedom. You're infringing, my rights to be able to wear what I want,
expression,
where I want. How does my peep toes affect my productivity? How does it affect my thinking, how does it affect me working on my laptop? If my toes are peeped, it's a comfort for me. If I want to come through work barefoot, allow me to, so that I can be able to work for you. At the end of the day, what I believe that, employers need to look at is, human capital, for some reason is not seen as, an asset. It's not even, and perhaps maybe accountants need to pull through. But, we need to look at human capital as an asset within the company. And in looking at it as that, how are you able to maximize your profits through that as an asset? Not just the machinery or the equipment or whatever that you have, but if you are able to make that environment conducive for your people, they will love working for you, they will stay there, and they will love making money for you. Creating certain incentives is also quite important, but figuring out what makes them tick. Because you are going to be telling me you're going to give me a bonus. Maybe a bonus is not what I'm looking for. Maybe more time off is what I'm looking for. So you need to figure out in your demographic, what do your people like? And that requires that time of researching. That requires that question of perhaps we might need to change our corporate culture. That literally will be a conversation that we're having in the next 10 years, but most definitely 5 years. Had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a specialist in, that. And, he's into leadership development. And these are the conversations that we're having. And we are prepared to pull through and assist corporates in that space to say, look, you need to plan in advance, just as much as you're planning for technological changes, just as much as you go through strategic meetings for bringing in, larger profits or larger sales. This impacts sales. Figure out what is a driver. This impacts your profits. It impacts your business, your profits, your sales, your human capital, but not only about taking them to trainings, because I feel like that's what they do. It's like, you're underproductive, let's go to wherever, and then they go for a week and then they come back. It's literally got to do from the head down, I believe, and understand this demographic. Okay, they like this, they like this, they like that. Okay, maybe we should introduce something in, a little at a go, and then see how they react. Literally do like a research over a month of their behavior. Also, we introduced what the other day. Man, it seems like they are enjoying this. Okay, cool. Let's try to do this, and be open to experimenting. I think the thing with corporate culture is it's always been rigid, and everybody sees it as it's corporate culture. And these are how things have been done. But if you don't change, you'll become obsolete. We are seeing a lot of companies becoming obsolete because of lack of changing. And it's not just about maybe the product or the service not changing. The product or the service is not changing because you're not even capitalizing on that talent. A lot of, let's say, corporates require innovation hubs within themselves. The talent that you should be using is the millennials for those departments.
True, very true. So in the entrepreneurial space, the SMME space, what are the nuances there? Because look, I am a startup. I've got my own challenges. Listen, I'm trying to start my company. I don't have time to be dealing with issues that are millennials. You know what I'm saying? But the bottom line is that they are there. You're going to work with them, you're going to employ them, or you'll be selling to them. One way or the other, you need to understand these people. We need to understand this generation. You know what I'm saying? So what are some of the challenges there? Maybe top 2 or 3 that you think the SMME space is finding with regards to millennials?
That by SMME is another one.
It must be a hot mess there. Yeah.
Wow. So exactly that. So let's say you're an SMME, you're a sole, okay, lucky you guys are you're in a partnership. So it's heavy, but it's a bit lighter because you got somebody else to cry on. But say you're a sole owner, everything falls on you from the concept of the business right through the operations. Yonkinto is looking at you, how things are run, clients come in, you are the first person that they talk to. Right through the process, right through operations, you are the same person up until sales or after sales, and so then sometimes you either outsource, services from millennials. So maybe you need your website built, maybe you need to, if let's say I'm going to do a team building somewhere, and I would like to work with somebody who's more in wellness. So I prefer, in as much as I can do that section by myself, I prefer to partner with somebody. Then I bring in an associate. Then they've got their own ways of doing things because these people are millennials. You communicate with them certain hours of the day. They either don't respond or they do respond. They're going with Bob, and to a client, to a whatever, it looks like you're lacking professionalism, dude. You're
Yeah.
busy I sent you an SMS or whatever. I sent you an email at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, fine. Office time was closing, but you're sending me a response at 1 a.m. Those things where it's like, especially within SMEs, where things aren't so rigid. There's an office hours, but there's no office hours. Because you're trying to get the client. So the behaviors and how they operate are a little bit, different. So yes, sometimes they don't even care. So you can be my client. You don't have to be my client. I don't care. And they have this element of, I won't change for you. This is my products. These are my services. This is how it is. Where now I'm not willing to negotiate. I'm not willing. And I think millennials have an element of superstardom. I forgot what it's really called, but like the element of superstardom. So I am, Reabetswe. I am good at what I do. You can't even contribute to tell me, but Reabetswe, I wasn't happy with A, B, C, D, or D. Because no, you're the problem. I know what I'm doing. There's that superstardom element to say, no, I'm an influencer. Go check at me on Instagram. People follow me. I lock these kinds of clients. So who are you? I won't change for you. And yet business is about being sensitive to your clients' wants and needs.
That was going to be my next question. Okay. We are talking a lot about how, millennials can be met at their point of need, so to speak. This is what I need from you guys so that I can be able to add value. We've discovered they like to be linked to the bigger vision. Unlike, the baby boomers, do as you are told, follow the rules, etc. A millennial is like, okay, so what are we trying to do here as an organization? Yes. What is our vision? So how do I fit into this bigger picture? So they love that, right? And then there's a particular role that I play because I'm important like that. I'm self-aware because I'm great like that, right? So organizations need to be very sensitive to that. These are not the people. I'm even finding it with my 16-year-old, 19-year-old in the house. It's not like you shall do as I tell you because I'm a parent. I actually need to sit with these guys and tell them,
okay, buy-in.
You know what I'm saying? And that nonsense takes time. And sometimes we have to be aware. If you're running a business, you don't have time for that, right?
That's the thing.
Can we just get to it? So yes, as employers, as corporate leaders, we need to be very sensitive in how we bring these guys into the space, how we then get them to be creative so that they can deliver for our bottom line. I also say there's a responsibility on these millennials as well, right? This nonchalant, don't care attitude is also not going to work for you if you are a millennial that is running a business or a millennial that works for someone.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that we also need to have conversations about. Okay, yes, we are millennials. Yes, we feel we run the world, but we also have issues on our side. What are these top 3, top 5 issues? I know you've touched on one of them, for example, with I'll respond to you when I respond to you. Take it or leave it. You can't. If I'm your potential client, I cannot. What are these conversations even happening amongst millennials? But guys, okay, all right,
It's a question, and I think that's why I did ended up zoning into the space, because I'm seeing the gaps on both sides. I'm seeing the challenges that employers have in the corporate space, businesses have, but I'm also seeing the challenges that we have, that in as much as we're the self-aware generation, but are you self-aware enough to start to do a gap analysis on yourself, but also that you're stepping into someone else's territory, right? So it's someone else's business, that's your workspace. And there is an element of you need to do, in Rome what the Romans do. There still needs to be that element. In as much as you want to bring in your own ideas of what you think work is, still respect the fact that whatever brand that you're going to get, the space that you're getting into, there's a level of experience and there's a level of wisdom. And I think that's where, the bridge needs to be gapped between the two I wouldn't call it the two generations. So the biggest gap would be between the baby boomers and the millennials, because these are the people that are in the workspace. Millennials kind of get along with Generation X. X is the bridge between the two. It also gets along with baby. They understand why things need to be done. They understand why there's order. They get, why there's hierarchy. In as much as we feel, I want to just talk to the CEO and tell him that you are, the tea in the office is what, because now, but they understand that you can't be bothering a CEO about issues about, tea, so the millennials, it becomes a challenge of, maybe it affects even things like time management. So yes, they may be efficient, but because of, so what would look like to a baby boomer as this person isn't time efficient is, I have my own priorities. So to you, it looks like I'm not time efficient, but to me, it looks like I am efficient. I'm late to a meeting because I had to do which to me is important, because of the self part. So they're very, like we're saying, self-oriented. Everything is about the self. It's about me, my balance. Did I wake up? Did I meditate? That was important for me before I got to work. I get to work 8:30, but I got to work, didn't I? Looks like I got to work, right? I even, maybe I woke up at 1 a.m. to reply to certain emails. So in my head, I've already done that 30 minutes work. To you, work starts at 8, gal, So there's those things of, we both need to understand each other's perspectives, each other's value systems, who values what, to understand, well, okay, so that's why she does, whatever. Also, that's why she behaves in that manner, because she feels that, no, but I got Kitsukhile at 1 o'clock. I did. So that 30 minutes, it's there. And accordingly, and apparently, according to research, it's seen that, the millennials are the overworked generation because their clock never stops. So let's say with my mother, in her workplace, the moment it's 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and she knocks off, if she's at home, she doesn't think about work. She doesn't have to, because now she's able to play the role of mother. But with the millennial, but also some baby boomers, it slowly, it's becoming that they work around the clock, seemingly because of these gadgets that we have. You have constant access to me through my phone, through my emails. But now that means that mentally, I'm always clocked into your work as my boss. So I need that mental part where I'm clocking off. That's maybe why I might just come through late, because to you it's being late, but I've already spent so much time thinking and doing your work at home when I should have been with my boyfriend, with my husband, with my children. So it's sort of these other elements that we need to think about, that even technology has impacted or affected our behaviors, how we work, how we think, how we behave as well.
So Ria, as you speak and consult with corporations, what do you find the mood is? Maybe not the mood, but what do you find is there a willingness, I think, of corporates to adjust? Because if I run my company and I hire you, Ria, I'll say, look, this is my culture, like you were saying, because I was thinking the same thing, that you're coming into my house, so you obey my rules. You can't come to my house and lay down your own rules. So these are my rules. But now we are in a different space, and there is technology. There's the technology aspect of it, I think, for the millennials as well, who can say, yes, I'm plugged in. Even if I leave at 1, I can do whatever the 2 hours that I wanted. But once I'm done 2 o'clock, I'll be locked in until 7 or 8. I'll be doing my job, and then I'll be done. But is there that, do you find that there's that willingness of perhaps adjusting a culture to, adjust, and so that the millennials can adapt? Or is it going to be, say, you come to work and this is the corporate culture, unfortunately, your toe, whatever, revealing shoes, I cannot. If I'm going to the board, you need to have your, because we've seen, I think, some of, I think it's the Generation X or so, they come into the office with their shirt like this, and then there's a tie that stays in the office, or a jacket that's in the office. If they are called to the boss's office, they can pull that in and then they go to the office. So, but do you find as you consult that this happens, or is that slight shift, or are you called back at some stage, like Pums will say, you are just called once off, and this is what you do, it's a talk, and you engage with management, and these are the recommendations, but are we seeing that move or shift?
It's a really tough conversation to have. And, you know, Swangile, you're raising a very, very pertinent issue, because remember, it's not even, you know, it's something that's not yet there. So when it comes to the bosses, when it comes to management, when it comes to the board, they're not yet seeing the importance, because we care about driving sales. We looked at the financial statements, we had our board meeting, and this is what we need to focus on, until somebody comes through to educate them to say, but, you know. And so this is why the conversation with the HR department becomes an important one, to say, it's like you first need to, so this was a long process for people like myself. You first need to have the conversation with the HR, get the buy-in from them to understand what is it that what solution are you bringing in as Reabetswe, right? First of all, then only will they see, or this is important. But that conversation is where things get staggered. And that takes a lot of convincing, a lot of researching. What research have you done to back this up? What do you think? And because now remember, it's a futuristic trend. It's actually happening, but it's a futuristic trend. And so they're not always concerned or thinking about what's happening in the future, because we still got to take out fires of now and the past. We still got to sort out the fact that so much money is being spent on rent, but these people went in the office. They just need to come back to the office. Whether or not they still need to invest actually in, you know, rescheduling their behaviors to understanding, you know, how the office works, because that's another thing. There needs to be that element where 2 years scaly at home, working, whatever ways that we've been working, we still need to get into the groove of the office space, the office dress code. I mean, we've invested so much in our pajamas. So, so now
True.
we need to go back and buy suits. So,
Yeah.
and, you know, and, you know, they don't fit anymore.
Yeah, they don't fit. Yeah.
Which are real issues. And also just creating an environment where, like I've said, with certain generations and with millennials, mental health is becoming a key thing. So with the work-life balance and me discovering myself, also is my mentality taken care of by the workplace, because that's the place that gives me the biggest stress, and the biggest stress levels. So it's literally just trying to get in the buy-in of leaders, of CEOs, of HR. So it's still that. It's still an ongoing process, an ongoing conversation that they need to understand. And even from the perspective of the millennials, there's some of them don't see anything wrong with how they behave. And that still needs to be a point of conversation and a point of correction, to be honest.
But maybe, could it be that perhaps because, I don't know, the culture, you know, I think this is also a challenge for, you know, the CEOs and the excos, you know, of corporates today. Because unfortunately, you do have your baby boomers, your generation, you do have these generations, all of them in one. You know, perhaps it's maybe, I don't know if it works, but maybe perhaps it's something that can be looked at in terms of how do you integrate, perhaps, you know, as an HR culture that can come in, how do you integrate these, because now you already have done the research, you know, as an organization, you know your workforce, for example, from an HR point of view, who perhaps weighs, or where the scale weighs. Maybe the corporates can look at where the scale weighs and to integrate the two, to say, okay, yes, this is the corporate culture, this is what needs to be done. However, this is the space, maybe perhaps, because maybe one of the things that I've seen as you lead people in a team, even though it's not an organizational culture, but within departments, you do have, for example, different, you know, ways of working, but you look at your people and you allow, I think, individuals to perhaps operate in their creative ways, however, that you can actually get value, because also as a corporate, you need, you know, to get or to extract value from your resources, which humans are also part of, I think, your biggest resources within an organization. Maybe that's what, I don't know, I'm just thinking aloud, that maybe that could work. But yeah, it's something that has not been looked at. I think we have just adopted, I think even corporates, you just adopt, a corporate needs to work in this way. It's an 8 to 5. But the one thing that has come in that we've seen, I think, Pumzile, is just the flex, you know, when they say flexible time, but the flexible time is just either from 7 to 8:30 or 9. And then from, you know, half past or half past, quarter to 4, 3:30, quarter to 4, maybe to 5:30. That's just a little bit of that, because then for the duration of the day, we want to see you there, because we believe if you're there, you're working.
It's a very old school
true.
way, a very old school way of doing things. And you know, the stats that says I'm a millennials. In fact, just in the workforce, the working from home has proven that people are actually overworked than when they were working in the offices. And I so believe that, because, you know, we've worked together. You know how I used to work with my teams. I don't need to see you. I don't care. As long as you've got your laptop, you've got your phone, you know which clients you need to see. I just don't want to get a call from your client saying that you didn't pitch for a meeting. But I extracted so much time and value from my team in working with them like that. They always, you know, they will be going to, you know, doctor's appointment with their kids and whatnot. They will have their laptops with me. If there's an emergency, they will have their laptops with them. If there was an emergency, I knew I could get hold of them at any point in time, even weekends. Because I wasn't on the 8 to 5 thing, I was on the output. But on Mina as a leader, I could see which I'm actually extracting a lot more time out of them and more value. But they were also ready and willing and happy to give it, because they had that flexibility to do their own thing, take their kids to school, go run their own errands, do their own smolanyana business on the side and whatnot. So it actually works best for both sides, but it's like conscious parenting. It takes time. It takes a lot of mental energy from a leader to be able to manage that type of a setup. You know, like how I was saying,
confident that
they
will.
So there are particular structures that are unconventional that you need to put in place to make sure that there's productivity. There are things that, you know, how I used to fight with HR all the time, because the old HR rules cannot work when we want to implement these types. Even the recruiting of these guys is completely different.
Even the CVs.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember seeing a picture
even
of
the
a
recruiting
CV.
spaces need to change, and how you attract the real talent out of these millennials.
I was saying even the CVs look different, eh? I once saw a CV of very few words. It was a picture of an animated individual. So say it's Reabetswe, the one page, and then, you know, it says intellect, it says speaker, it says, like, I was just, that's the CV, you know?
But when you lead like Pumzile, for example, when you lead like Pumzile, you also have to be a different type of leader, and also thick skin, because remember, you are within an organization with different departments, and then they come into your space and they are looking for Reabetswe. And you know, Reabetswe is not in their office, and they'll come back maybe again next week or so. Unfortunately, they find on those days that they come, Reabetswe is working, you know, differently from a different location. And then, you know, they'll be like, your people, and they're writing emails, so people are never in the office. And so, you know, as the leader, then you need to also be ready for such conversations and to respond, you know, to such, because sometimes it's even people who are senior than yourself who will be coming and telling you such things as well. You know, so I think it is a challenge that I don't know when we will be able to say, yes, we are reaching middle ground. And also to be understood, I think, within the organization or in corporates or as a people, I think, because it's not just at work. because it's all over. You see it in churches. You see these kids say, why should I go to church? I mean, this church of yours, no, but why should I
read
do
this other
this?
book the other day. Those types of conversations. I remember, having a heated conversation with my mother. I'm like, well, this, and the other. And then she's like, so are you saying you're not Christian? Like, I'm like, no, I'm not saying I'm not Christian. I'm saying to you, this is information that's presented, and what are you doing with the information?
Absolutely.
So,
and you look at Phumzile, who's born, is not a millennial per se, but then you look at why does she understand millennials, because I think it's that multi-layered. I think because with some of us, for example, that was suppressed because your millennials questions. So when Generation X and who was questioning what was happening, you cannot question. Yours is just to absorb and take in and just be submissive and be compliant. So that is a challenge. And if you go to your mother, and that's why she'll ask you, you are not a believer, and that does not mean that. It's just that things don't make sense. I want to understand. And your millennials, unfortunately, they are challenging us. They are asking questions. They ask even those most questions that you wouldn't think that but they will ask. Your 10-year-old will ask, and you have to tell the truth, unfortunately, because if you don't today, information is galore. Yes, absolutely. And then they come to you, and then what happens? That relationship as well between you and them. It's and also at work, because if you don't allow them, the respect goes away. That is why they'll try, I can do this job better than you. And we feel that they're disrespectful, because there's this other layer that I would like you to touch for me, maybe as my last one to say. Your millennials, I don't know. Like you say, I think it's the issue that they don't read manuals and they don't read books. They understand, but I can take this thing and take it up, but I know I can put it back. But with us, it's been different. Go read with them. It's not, they come in, they don't have to take 5 years for a promotion or to get to this stage. They get frustrated. So I don't know how do we bridge that, because for them, they are there 3 months, 5 months, they've mastered this. They do it very brilliantly. So what do you do? Because the corporate has, they're saying this is your succession, this is when for it will take you this long for you to get there. Emilia is like, oh, me, I'm done now, I'm bored. What else do I have to do here? So I don't know, how do we change that, particularly in terms of growth and creativity in the corporate?
So, when you mentioned that, what you realize, it'll go back to what we've mentioned about millennials, is the self element. So sometimes when they, get into a workplace and they get to learn a particular skill, they're not necessarily there to climb up that ladder. They're climbing up their own ladder. So I'm here, I get into a particular post, I'm here to learn this skill and this skill so that I can move on to the next place. But it might not necessarily be within your company. And that's why even their drive is like that. I miss, after 3 months, I'm out. I mean,
no loyalty.
I've gotten what I needed to get. Okay, let me apply for what post. I want to be a financial manager. They look at my resume. They like the fact that I worked at and even if it's for short, but the fact that I was given that opportunity to do that, it means that she's well and capable. Then it's about me moving up to my personal ladder of whatever that I feel is success to me. And it might not always even be about money. And that's why, sometimes when they incentivize millennials with things like financial kickbacks, some of them will be like, rather give me time kickbacks, give me more time. And because time is more valuable, I can be able to do something else that will be able to increase, my income in a different space. Give me more time to do my art. Give me more time to do my music, because I want to be able to go performing, even though I'm still a financial analyst. So it's about me, my ladder, myself, looks very self-absorbent and everything about. That's why it's about self-awareness, my mind, my space, etc. So That's what it basically is about.
And it's a real thing, right? And you know, when you put it like that, the challenge of, you know, they work for you for 3-6 months, and they come to you and they're like, I'm now due for a raise, and you like, sorry, ganja, and they wanna genuinely, they feel Uguti, I have mastered this thing, and yeah, I'm great like that. Well, now you're like, so okay, explain to me, why do you think you now, you know, you deserve
I've
a
been
raise?
here for 20 years, Mina.
Exactly.
I've never received a raise.
Exactly. That's
Who
why.
are you?
Exactly. Because now you like, Haibo, 6 months, explain to me. And the bona, it doesn't come from anything else but their sense of greatness, their sense of, I'm great like that. Give
like,
me,
I know my worth.
deserve yes, I deserve a 30% increase. And those conversations get they get nowhere, because bosses are literally like, what nonsense. But they are not, and those guys are not playing. They actually feel they are deserving, because they place a very strong value on self-worth. Very, very strong. I'm great like that. I'm brilliant like
We
that.
understood Umeslow.
We are used to a lot
They are there.
So
the
that's
pyramid.
another challenge. That's a very challenge. Yeah, they are no longer, you know, worried about bottom, you know, part of the hierarchy of, you know, do I belong? You know, my security. I mean, that's why they would leave without a job, without a security, without. And I'll be eccentric like that. I don't need to come in a dress code in Janjani, because I don't need to belong. So it's a complete different way of how these guys do things. And then HR is like, hey, bo, now when you don't speak to your boss like that, again, to the point you've made, their definition of respect is, hear me out, sit down with me. I don't care who you are, because you are human just like me. You are great and I'm just as great. So you will sit with me and you will have a conversation with me. I don't care if you are a board member or you are a CEO. And me, I get that. But yeah, me, I'm confusing like that. People are always like, when now, where do you fall? So me, I'm strange like that. But I get them. I really get them. And so the work that organizations have to do, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that needs to change. But I will always go back to this, because me, I'm confusing like that. I always say to these millennials, guys, there's a level of stepping it up that you also need to, you know, with this is a, you know, when there's a responsibility and accountability, to whom much is given, much is expected. Let me put it that way. And I think as we are winding down to close, I would like to leave that with the millennials. So to me, you know, don't be fooled that people don't understand. People don't know. There are people like us who actually do understand. And then there are people like us who actually expect a lot out of you, because we are willing to give you a lot. Guys, these guys have something to give. Me, you know, I work with these guys a lot. And in fact, they are agile, man, these guys. You say, let's do this project. They'll be like, okay, when do we start? Before you know, it's now research. Here's what I love these guys. You know, take off is very easy, very quick. Unlike, you know, some of the guys, okay, why do we have to do it? No, so before you know it, the conversation is long. But, and you know, you give these guys that space to be creative and do this and be innovative. You know, your job is really to just reel them in, because they don't think risk. Yeah, business risk to them is like non-existent. So you need to always like bring them along and reel them in. Guys. So the conversation I really love to have with millennials, you need to have very, very strong conversations amongst yourself. To whom much is given, much is expected. So we've been at it for long. As we are really winding down, I asked Ria to share 2 books that she feels have really shaped her as a business person, as a brilliant brain that she is. currently. So because we love books, we always want to see where are you getting your insights. It would be nice for you to share that. And then as you are closing, to share one or two learnings that you really had to relearn as the person of your age, and one or two learnings that you really had to unlearn as the person of your age.
Tough one. Sure. So with the book, I don't have it. I realized that I don't have it yet at home. It's at home in Polokwane. But the one that kind of, I guess, was my aha moment or my epiphany, it's a book by Rick Warren. It's called Purpose Driven Life. So I read that. I don't have much time to go into it because I need to be in a meeting by 11. But what was going on in my life at that time was crunch time. And I was at my lowest of my life, I think, at that point in time. I just dropped out of UCT. And that was when I got the epiphany that we're living life on purpose. I had chosen a degree based on, I'll, become accounting based on, but this will bring me the fastest, not the fastest rate of success, but guaranteed success. So I chose a degree based on that and not based on my abilities or my passions or, purpose, right? And so when I discovered that book, that kind of changed my mindset on how I do things. When I put myself in a particular space, there has to be a purpose for that. If it doesn't fit into my purpose, then it's not worth my time. So that was one of the epiphany type books at this point in time. This is my favorite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The reason being is I'm an African in Africa, and I am literally seeing a whole lot of tech influences, but I'm interested in finding out where the gaps are, because I do believe that all the other continents have been used up. And there's a lot of not only human talents, but intellectual talents. There's a lot of that Africa can offer, and that can influence culture, can influence the music industry, what are innovations. There's a lot that Africa has to give. And so I'm quite invested in finding out how I can be a catalyst in that. So that's one of the reasons why that is. Then it was, what am I relearning? Going back to the art, I think I'm relearning the skill of rediscovering myself constantly. And I'm enjoying, like, it's so weird. I think when I hit my 30s, I thought, yo, manje.
You guys
boxing yourselves.
No, you guys do not understand. I had a conversation with my business coach now, and I think it was last week. What was it? I don't remember. So I'm like, yo, my knees, my back. And she's like, what? She's like, what are you talking about? You are just 30. So what's up with your knees and your back? I'm like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
But so I'm relearning at this age, and I'm enjoying this process of rediscovering myself. And sometimes even going back to some of the things that I used to like to do as a child, because it reignites that, going back to that element of reigniting your energy, which creates the work-life balance. I'm enjoying that process. Like, I'm enjoying figuring out Reabetswe, her kinks. I'm enjoying rediscovering her. I'm also enjoying, I enjoy my family, man. So a lot of the times people think that if you're young, Black, no, not only Black, but if you're young and you're not married, that family is not important. That is a key driver for me. A lot of the decisions that I do are based on that, are based on my family. What does it mean for my family? So they think that family is only about me being married or me having children, but family is a bigger, perspective. So I'm relearning how to define family, how to define friendships as well, what those relationships mean to me, and not a lot of times we've become so, there's an element of social capital. So things are about who I associate with, and sometimes those are fake. But those kinds of things where you recenter and you find out what's important. I'm enjoying this process. Like, I'm enjoying my 30s. Yes, unlearning the elements of what we also discussed earlier, being boxed. And also boxing my behaviors. So yes, in as much as PR and branding is important on how people perceive you, you need to actually be smart about that. But I'm enjoying being me. So there's certain parts of me that I would have to hide, seemingly because of I'm scared of what the client might like. If I am a veiled, individual, and I talk like this because I'm in corporate, you talk in a particular manner, I have to have certain mannerisms. But sometimes they enjoy your entire personality as it is. So I'm unlearning the element of corporate, so I have to, just be prim and proper. Sometimes people really relate to you as an individual and as a person entirely. And so I'm unlearning that. And perfectionism. So I used to struggle with starting things or projects. It's still like a work in progress, but I would delay on starting something because I need to have it figured out in my head. So I need to have a picture of what it needs to look like. I'll give an example. I needed to know what this picture looked like in my head before I started it. So that would then result in me procrastinating. But I've unlearned, and I'm in that process of just start as it is, and whatever as it is, you go with the flow. And this is maybe taps into the business side of me and being scared to venture into different things or new things because I haven't yet really figured it out. What is it? But just that process of I'm learning at the same time while I'm creating. So those are my takeaway points.
That's great. That's great. Okay, Sibongile, your last words before I close out.
Okay, for me, I think the millennials, what I like about them, I'll just say a comment, is the different perspective they bring to the table. Not afraid of that. The fresh and different perspective they put on the table. While us, we used to be afraid of raising the hand. With them, they don't even raise a hand, but they will give you, you'll be thinking something and then they'll give you a different perspective, creativity for them. I think that's what worked best. So I don't want to hold on to Ria because she needs to go. But just one comment from Lingo. I think it was when you were talking about productivity, about millennials. He says, that you are on point, Reabetswe, because that sounded like her eldest son who's always in a hurry to finish so he can do other things. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ria. I love your brain. I love your, who you are, what you stand for. People like you, as young as you are, you would swear, Uguti, she has lived a few lifetimes. She probably has, but,
That's why my knees are aching.
I know, right? I know. So thank you for joining us. We have gone over time, but I actually knew this is one of those topics that we could go on for hours on end talking about. But thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights with us. I don't think this is the first and the last interview we're going to be having, or the work we'll do with you. We will probably, I think there's a lot more that needs to be done going forward, but you and I have had these conversations before anyway. So thank you so much for joining us. We're very sorry we kept you, but it's you because of your brilliance. So I blame you. So thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you to the audience for joining us. Bye.